Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Okay, thanks for being on, Linda. I feel like we're doing a podcast only in front of 71 people.
Yeah, we probably should just clip this, record it, and make it one. We're all looking for work.
We should. So, okay, I prepped them on this, but do you want to start by telling people a little bit why you're passionate about fierce conversations and a little bit about it, and then we'll move into the confrontational model?
Yeah, will you tell me our stop hard time so I don't go over for you?
Dawn is hopping on right at 3, so we'll end right at 3 or 2 your time.
Okay, got it. Okay, all right. So fierce. Yes, there are certain classes that I teach because I need. I teach selfishly is what I like to say. I really try to pick the classes that I need to master in a mad kind of way. And so quite a few years ago, Susan Scott was our guest speaker at Family Reunion. And literally I had a conversation, a confront conversation that I had been needing to have for a very long time. And if any of you have had one of those conversations, you think of it often, it weighs on you all the time, and you don't have it, and it just gets worse. So I had been needing to have a conversation. I didn't know at the time that it was a fierce conversation. She gets up and speaks, and I said, oh my God, I'm going to tackle this woman on break. I ran and bought her book, went straight back to my hotel room. And at night after the classes, I just constantly read the book. And in there, she kind of gives you the confront format. Literally did a horrible job delivering the confront conversation the day Family Reunion was over, and it worked miracles. It was amazing. And I thought, and I sucked at it. I was terrible. So I was convicted. And so months later, Master Faculty gets an opportunity for anybody who wants to become a certified fierce teacher inside KW to get to do that. So I raised my hand, said, I got to learn this stuff. So now I make it a goal to teach at least 2 to 3 times a year. And I always make a commitment to take someone I really care about with me. So this is a great class if you ever have it close by or whatever, that you could take one of your best clients, business client owners, anybody. Doesn't have to be business. Everybody has to have conversations. And once you kind of get this and understand this, you can't pretend you don't. So your life will just get amazingly better, and so will theirs. So we use it a lot, probably more than we want to, right, Dana?
Yes, for sure.
So Dana says, hey, can you talk on the confront conversation? I said, well, how long do I have? She goes, well, about 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, the one that takes 3 hours in the class, you got it. Do it, Dana. So I'm going to come at you fast, and then I'm going to answer any questions that you have. But what I want you to do first is I want you to think of someone that you would really like to change their behavior. And what feelings come up when you think about having a conversation with that person about their behavior? And it could be personal, it could be business, it could be whatever. What are some of the feelings that come up? Because some of these conversations could have been sitting there for quite a few times. So who's willing to share some of the feelings that come up when you think about having a conversation with someone that you really would like to change their behavior? And Dana, you can watch this.
You can unmute and just shout them out or put them in the chat.
Anxiety.
Anxiety, absolutely. Frustration, yes.
Negativity,
yeah. It's not something we run head into, right?
Can it be a physical feeling, like a feeling in my stomach?
Yeah, you can want to throw up, whatever you need to do. Yes, it can be anything. Energy vampire.
Yeah. Scared how they'll react is always a huge one.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, all those emotions come up. We want the behavior to change. And the minute we kind of realize that's when all those feelings come up inside of us. So because of those feelings, what are some of the strategies we use other than being clear and direct with someone? What are some of the strategies we try to get that person to get it? What are some of the things we do rather than be clear and direct? We're not clear and direct. So what do we do instead?
Accountability holding.
Yeah, maybe just hold them accountable for even who knows what. They may not even know what, right? What else?
I always love the one about like the pillow fluff when we think that we're having a conversation with somebody that we're being direct or this way, and then they leave and that they got a raise.
Yeah, really, you fired them. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do lots of things. We teach in a big room full of people that they're sitting in, and we teach everybody hoping they get it. You hoping that one person that you need to have a real conversation with about their behavior, you hope they get it. And yet they're the one person in the room that doesn't get it. And you've spent your whole time with the rest of the group teaching about it. And it's not even about them. Right. The other thing we do is, we hint at it, just trying to hint and hope that they get it right. And hope that they catch on or do whatever. But, what's another?
Rachel said, avoid those people. Like a lot of times then we'll just avoid them.
Yeah. We'll avoid them completely altogether. Yeah, totally. So those are some of the things that we do, strategies we use rather than being clear and direct. Now, here's some of the mistakes we make when we go in to have them, and then we'll kind of spend the rest of our time walking you through how we do actually have them. One of the mistakes we make is we go in and say, how's it going? What's the problem with going into someone that you want to change their behavior and starting with that? What's the problem with that? If I go in and say, well, Dana, how's it going?
They think everything's great.
Or they say, oh, everything's good. We got a little bit of a glitch over here, but all's good. We're good.
Yep.
And what am I left with? Liar. I really know what's going on. And you're over here saying it's all fine, right? So I don't have any place to go if I go in and say, how's it going? When I actually know from at least the examples I'm going to use or the perspective I'm coming from, I do know how it's going, right? The other thing we do is, this is the one I was guilty of years ago. And I have one girl, and God, I wish I could find her and apologize to her. I dump trucked on her. And that's where you go in and you let it build up so freaking long that you just like explode on them. And I'm so embarrassed to this day that I did that to another human being. I did so many things wrong, so many things wrong. I didn't have clear examples. There are just so many things I did wrong. And I just really dumped on her, and I felt better for about 2 seconds. And then I felt horrible, and she felt horrible, right? She got nothing from that. The other thing we do is we write the script. We decide in advance, I'm going to say this, they're going to say that, and I'm going to say this, and they're going to say that. And then before you know it, you say, well, heck, there's no sense in even doing it. Or you go to have the conversation, and guess what they don't do? They don't follow the script because they don't know it, right? And then the sandwich one is one that we learn actually as something we should do. And that is where you go in and you give them a compliment, and then you slap them upside the face, and then you give them another compliment. What does that teach them to do? What do they learn now? Every time you give them a compliment, what are they starting to do? They're going
to get slapped.
They're going to duck because they're like, oh, I know what comes after a compliment. It's not good, right? So we do the sandwich approach. And then Dana's favorite, which I'm sure she was terribly guilty of for a long time, I can just imagine, pillows around it. And the message gets lost in the pillows, right? I literally did have a friend one time that went in to her company, and she thought she got a raise, and they actually fired her. But the person that was doing it put so many pillows around it. She was so confused when she left. She thought she was doing a good job, and apparently they didn't think so. So she got fired. So those are the mistakes that we make. But before we kind of go into real quick the model, I want to give you the 3 real quick foundational pieces that make all of this kind of come together. And I want you to always think about, right? This is the foundation about conversations, period, right? The first one comes from Ernest Hemingway in his book, The Sun Also Rises, or something like that. He says in there's a character that says, how'd you go to bankrupt? And the guy goes, gradually and then suddenly, right? And the sad thing is we don't wake up until the suddenly, right? So, but our businesses, our careers, our relationships, they all succeed or fail gradually and then suddenly, one conversation at a time. So we can think that nothing's happening because we're not having this conversation, when in reality, the missing conversations are as dangerous or more dangerous than the ones that we have and they go wrong, right? So the second foundational piece that you have to understand about conversations is from a guy named David Wyatt. And he he's written quite a few books, but he says hand in hand with the idea of, our relationship succeed or fail one conversation at a time. He says that usually in a young marriage, the young man is often perplexed or frustrated because the woman that he's just pledged his life to comes to him yet again, and she wants to have a conversation. And he said more times than not, the conversation she wants to have has to do with something to do with the relationship. And he's thinking, didn't we just have, a conversation like this, like last week or last night or 3 months ago? Couldn't we just have one long conversation about the relationship and be done with it? I know Jimmy's still saying that after almost 40 years. Do we have to have another conversation about the relationship? And David Wyatt says, he wakes up one time and he realizes that conversation that his wife has been trying to have with him is not about the relationship. It is actually the relationship. And he said when he woke up and realized that any conversation that was muted or less authentic or they couldn't have because it was going to ruin another weekend was defining their relationship. And I always love this part because when I teach Fierce Conversations and we take a break afterward, this section, the men all run out in the hall and call somebody. I'm not sure who they're calling, but I got a feeling it might be the wife. And one time a gentleman, I'm asking for ahas, and he raised his hand and he said, my aha is I got a lot of relationships that are on life support. And it gives me chill bumps today to think that he woke up and realized that before the suddenly happened, right? Because some of the suddenlies are bankruptcy, divorce. These are suddenlies that you don't want to have happen in your life, but those missing conversations could actually cause that to jolt you awake somewhere in your future. So what I want you to do now is you've got your form in front of you. I want you to kind of walk with me. I want you to first think of someone that you have needed, that you would love to change their behavior. It could be personal, it could be professional, and you don't have to share with anybody, but someone that you really would like to change their behavior. And so the first thing you have to get clear on, and this is sometimes the hardest part, is naming the issue. And what I always like to say, if there's so many issues because it's just built up over time, pick the one that matters the most. Pick the one that you think will make the biggest difference. And this is where you slowing down long enough to really think about it is super valuable. So I want to train you that in the future, when you have to have one of these conversations, you do a couple things. One, you work through this worksheet and you don't go have the conversation without doing that first. You then role play and practice it with someone. They're not going to role play. They're actually going to listen to you. Get coaching is what you're going to get is coaching. And you let them listen for your clarity, your directness. You're not, adding extra words like, naming them or things like that. You want to be clear and concise, and you want to be real clear on what the real issue is. So get coaching around this and let someone help you. And I would even, after you get it all twizzled down and tweaked and everything else, I would practice it with other people quite a few times before I actually would do this. Because when you have this, if you do this correctly, it can be, and you want it to be relationship enriching. You want it to enrich your relationship, not tear it down. So this is not a conversation that you would have if you want to fire somebody. This is a conversation you have when really you just love for them to change their behavior, right? Okay, so name the issue. Shouldn't take you more than about 60 seconds to say. And the reason it's 60 seconds is because anybody can listen to you and pay attention for 60 seconds before they start interrupting you, right? Number two is you want to get as clear and concise as you possibly can on 1 to 3 examples, no more than 3, and at least 1 or 2 if you can. And why would you need examples? Because have you ever went to someone or had someone approach you and say, hey, blah, 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 you did this. And you go, well, give me an example. And they go, well, I don't have any. What do you automatically think? Oh, you're just making up crap. You don't like me, or you're just picking on me, or you're having a bad day. So clear examples really is hard for them to get away from, right? And so I'm going to give you an example of one in the Fierce class. He goes to Jackie and he says, Jackie, I want to talk to you about your leadership style and the effects. I want to talk with you. With you. It's always the word with you, not to you. I want to talk with you about the effects your leadership style, and the effects it's having on the team. He doesn't say my precious innocent team. He just says the team, right? So get that clear and all the emotional words you possibly can out of it. And that takes a good while sometimes if that conversation's been sitting out there. And then next thing you want to do is you want to describe your emotion around it. And the reason you want to do that is because you do have emotion. You have some fear maybe going on about if they don't change the behavior, what could happen with your results, your other team members, blah, blah, blah. So you want to go ahead and put your emotion out there because it's real, right? And then number 4, you want to clarify what's at stake. You know, I'm concerned we could be losing business because of this. I'm concerned that, you know, some of my other team members might be wanting to quit because they can't work with you. I mean, give some what's at stake for them, for you, for the business. Anybody that has something at stake for this, be sure and put that in there. And then number 5, and this one's what I'm going to tell you is sometimes hard, but I want you to sit here until you find it, but identify your contribution. Find your DNA in it. Even if it's, I should have come to you sooner. Because 9 times out of 10, you've got lots of opportunity, but you just don't take it because you're afraid of all the things we talked about. You know, they're going to get mad. They're going to blow up. They're going to leave. It's going to get worse after I talk to them than better, all that stuff. So you want to identify your contribution in it and stay there until you find your DNA in it. And the reason for that is if you don't, they will. So, and you also, when you find yours, you open it up for them to find theirs. You make it a safe place for them to find theirs. And then number 7, you invite the partner in. And I'm going to tell you, all of this is going to take about 60 seconds till you get to this part, to get to right here. And because people can pay attention for that long. That's why you got to really sharpen it up and tighten it up and everything before you go have it. And number 7 is where it gets messy. The minute you invite a partner in, they usually have 3 answers, 3 stances they're going to take. They deny, I didn't do that. They defend, well, you should have, if you'd have been in my shoes, you would have done that too. Or they deflect. Well, don't talk to me. You need to be talking to Dana. She's the world's worst at this. So they deflect it off to somebody or something else. So what you got to learn is which one of those is your trigger. Actually, all 3 trigger me, but I've learned to be calm and try not to lose my head. And what you want to do is just redirect them. So if I was talking to Jackie and Jackie said, well, you don't understand. I mean, the team is dumber than a rock. I mean, if you had to work with a dumb team like that, you would get mad too. Then what I always have to do is bring her back and say, Jackie, we're here to talk about your leadership style and the effects it's having on the team. So that's kind of the format. Any questions around that? And then it's going to take some work. It's going to take longer than 30 minutes, but you're going to at least have your format to follow and get some clarity and take all the emotion out so that you can have it. And what's beautiful is at the very end, what you want to do is after you hear their perspective and you keep bringing them back to here's what we're here to talk about, because that's what you want to change is let's say in Jackie's case, the leadership style. You got to ask them, what are you willing to do? What's your next step? Because once they kind of realize that you're not going to shoot them at dawn, they'll kind of calm down and start getting involved and say, well, here's really from my seat, here's the problem. The problem is we got a problem that nobody knows how to fix. And and then you begin to understand that the reason she was acting the way she was is because she had a great reputation. She had never missed a deadline. And now they had a problem that nobody knew how to fix. And now she's afraid she's going to look bad. So you get to understand their perspective a little bit and maybe where some of their stuff has, but you still got to get them to change the behavior. So we're still going to go back to, okay, well, here's what I see I can do to help. Now, what are you willing to do? And you just always go back to now, what are you going to do? Because it's really only something they can do. Does that make sense? Dana, what would you add with that?
Well, I was going to say, does anybody have a question? But while you're thinking of your questions really fast, the reason why I love this tool so much is because I think everyone needs to help having hard and difficult conversations, number 1, because nobody likes them. And number 2 is that a lot of times for me, I would avoid the conversation because I didn't have a plan, or I knew that I would get emotional meaning like angry, probably. Yeah. Yeah. And so this actually gives you a plan to follow, which is really good. And, it's interesting because sometimes I think we have to memorize all this. The great thing now, I mean, is we can if you're going to have a conversation on the phone with somebody over Zoom, I can't tell you how many times I've done this over the phone, and I've just like read my worksheet as I go, or I've made little notes and kept by it. I mean, I was trying to find one as an example on my email right now, but I can't because I'm sharing my screen to be able to show you guys. But it's interesting that when you actually just write it out and follow it, your thoughts are so much clearer. And so then Linda's right, when they do deny, deflect, or defend, and whichever one of those or maybe all three triggers you, you aren't triggered as fast because you're sticking to your plan and to your model. And it's so much easier. Oh my gosh, so much easier.
Yeah. And no matter how they approach it, deny, defend, or deflect, you're going to take it back to, we're here to talk about the effect X is having on Y. In other words, what is the behavior that you want to change? And that's really, now try to understand, because there may be a piece in there that you really need to own and you need to help. And, but again, we still got to change that behavior. So we're going to bring them back to that every single time. And what I love about this is no one has to change. And yet before the conversation is over, magic happens in most cases. And if not, you know that you got to get out of business with somebody, or they get out of business themselves because they're not willing to do the work. Either one, you probably win.
Actually, Linda, that's a good point, because you said in the beginning, this isn't something that you would use to like fire somebody from your team or let them go. However, sometimes that does happen. And that has happened with me using this before, because they've self-discovered.
Yeah. My first time I did it was, and somebody asking, I think it was Susan asking the group, is it different from men and women? No, it's not. It's the same. The way they respond may be different based on a man or a woman. I hadn't really thought about that. But the first time I did it was with a male, and it worked beautifully. And then within a week, he came in and quit, which was fabulous, because he was never going to be able to change the behavior he needed to change anyway. So it was perfect. It was exactly what needed to happen. I've got one, to be honest with you. I don't care how many times I confront them. They always deny, defend, and deflect. And we just had to weigh out, how do we keep this person in our life, because they're so valuable, but how do we keep them away from everybody else, honestly? But at least you know where you stand when it's over. At least you're not dealing with the what ifs and all the other stuff. You've got a lot of good clarity. And most of the time, people will change their behavior. And one of the cool things that he does in the story, and if you read the Fierce Conversation book, you'll hear the story. He actually had the great sense to ask this Jackie if there was any other place in her life where this was causing her problems. And 99% of the time, guys, if this is something that's showing up at work, it's showing up personally also. And you might save a marriage. You never know what's going to happen out of it. So you don't have to be in control of what they do, but you do have to have commitment to have the conversation. That's the only part you can control.
Linda, I always think the one about identifying my contributions to the problem, number 5, 90% of the time, mine is that I should have brought this sooner. So for those of you that, when you said that earlier, for those of you that sometimes wait and wait and wait, be it truly because you're busy or truly because you're dreading the conversation, it gets so much worse the longer that you wait to have the conversation. It's like it gets worse and worse and harder and harder.
Yeah, it's definitely not a situation where it gets better. Missing conversations, in all honesty, are way more damaging than the conversation going wrong or whatever. So I really just think, and I love this, because the reason I teach this, and I do it at least a couple of times a year, and I take somebody I really care about, is because this is valuable stuff to have. And you could change a person's life by being willing to have a hard conversation and a fierce conversation with them about something that they may not even be aware that they're behaviorally doing, that's causing them so much trouble in work or home or wherever. And you just kind of almost get to a place where you just go, I'm so convicted, I have to have this conversation, because I can't control what they do, but I have to at least do my part, which is have it. I have to step into it.
Linda, one thing I want to say while we wrap up is that, and I've watched and listen to Linda have many of conversations. And the thing that I love is that, and the reason why I love that the reason why I think she's so good at this is because she truly cares about the person. And when you truly care about them, you do want to have the conversation because you want the outcome to be better. You want it to resolve and there to be some sort of forward movement from it in a positive direction. And they can tell when you really care. And it's not, we work ourselves up, but it's not as horrible as we make it out to be, because afterwards, usually when they know that you care and you really do care, you end up so much in a better place and they feel better.
Yeah. I mean, you could have them come back and thank you years later and say that conversation changed everything for me. And then you could have some that go on down the road and the next job they get, they have the same problem and they have to figure it out later. But at least you were courageous enough and cared enough to have the conversation. Really, having the conversation is caring. Not having the conversation means you don't give a crap.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Okay, guys, Joan, we don't have time for an example shoot, but I do have a couple that we could email, and there is the one in the book too. So we can try to find that and shoot that out to everybody that registered. Linda, I know that you are highly scheduled. I'm taking busy out of my vocabulary. So thank you so much.
Speaker.
Oh yeah, you're staying for John. Okay, thank you, Linda, so much. Will you guys tell Linda thank you so much in the chat or unmute? They're all waving to you.
Thank you, Linda.
Awesome. And you guys, we are working on having Fierce taught. So as soon as before the end of the year, so as soon as we get that, I'll make sure that we send that to everybody that's registered so that you guys can have it. If you've never taken it, you should 100% take it. And if you have taken it, you should take it again. I've taken it probably 6 or 7 or 8 times and take it still every single time.
Like somebody you love or somebody you care about or one of your older children. I mean, give it as a gift. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give another human being is this class.
Yep. Absolutely.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.